the concept, the story idea, came from someone called Nick Sprague. What was the concept you were presented with, and what did you want to do with it?
So Jeff and I had been working in Colombia developing a feature film about the murder of a union worker and the formation of the first peace community in Latin America. And we were approached by ESPN to do a documentary as part of their 30 for 30 series with its focus on sports and society. And we had at the time been talking with our friend Nick Sprague, who was a former soccer player and spent many years traveling back and forth to Colombia, followed the national Colombian team for many years. We've been talking about the murder of Andres Escobar and all these big question marks that still remained around the events surrounding his murder. And very quickly found that we had this film that was the first expose of this fascinating and very secret phenomenon known as Narco-Soccer.
With this story, ESPN, they assigned the story to us, and so we still needed to find our voice in it. And it is a story that, for the Rise part, which is the first half of the film, does celebrate national identity and is a very innovative model for uniting a country around a common cause and creating a really positive image, just in contrast to the mainstream media portrayal of Colombia as a hotbed of violence and corruption and drugs. So it was great for us to be able to work on that, the rise of the national team as a model of hope for the country. We fell in love with the country, we love Latin America, and our friends and colleagues and subjects from the film, it was important to them that we not just extend a negative portrayal of Colombia. So there was an opportunity to focus on Andres Escobar, who was one of our protagonists, and had a vision for Colombia building off of a legitimate and pure foundation.
One of the things I found really fascinating is the level of control Pablo Escobar had over the Colombian government.
I mean, he was listed as, I think, the 7th richest man in the world by Forbes magazine in 1989. Of course, there was no hard facts about how much money he really had, but it was in the billions of dollars. And of course, when you have more money, actually we interviewed some members of the DEA who told us that, in their estimation, Pablo Escobar had much more money than the Colombian government at a certain point in time. And so, at first, this wealth is enjoyed with great tolerance throughout society because, of course, millions at the very least of dollars are pouring into the Colombian economy.
And housing that he built for them.
And of course, Pablo Escobar, during that period of tolerance, was seen as a local hero to many, called in fact the Robin Hood Colombiano, the Robin Hood of Colombia, because he did build houses for the poor that didn't have homes. He did build soccer fields. He did help sports teams. He did a lot of things that could be seen as positive. Now, of course, we have to keep that all within the context of a man who is responsible for over 5,500 murders. And that's, in my estimation, that's not a hero, and that's not a person anyone should ever want to emulate. Carlos Castano is a household name in Colombia. He enters into our story late in the game, towards the end of the glory years of Colombian soccer and around the deaths of Pablo Escobar and Andres Escobar. I should mention that Carlos Castano went on to become the leader of the AUC, which is the biggest, the umbrella paramilitary group in Colombia, one of the biggest paramilitary group in the world, I believe, and really influenced the history of Colombia. With regards to Pablo Escobar's death, it's difficult to find concrete evidence about what was happening on the ground in Medellin. There was any number of different special forces teams that were playing a hand, from the Israelis to the CIA to the FBI to the Colombian National Police to I think Delta Force was there. So there was also this illegal group, this right-wing assassin squad, vigilante assassin squad called the Pepes, or the people persecuted by Pablo Escobar. Personas perseguidas por Pablo Escobar. The Pepes were a group of defectors that had been a part of Pablo Escobar's Medellin cartel, his criminal organization, and through a series of internal events felt betrayed and also saw an opportunity when Pablo escapes from jail and is being pursued by all of these international forces, a real opportunity to step in and take over control of the whole underworld. Carlos Castano emerges as a natural leader. He had been a friend of Pablo Escobar's. He had been introduced by his brother Fidel Castano, and he was able to team up with some of Pablo's enemies, including the Cali cartel, which was the rival drug cartel in Colombia, or one of the rivals, but really the main opposing force in Colombia, to form this group. And their mission was to kill Pablo. They were able to use dirty tactics in a way that the U.S. Special Forces and the Colombian government forces could not.
Mm-hmm.
It's fairly well known, and I don't think that we're revealing anything in this interview by saying that the government forces, both of the U.S. and Colombia, were aware of the Pepes and aware of the actions that were being committed. We actually interviewed a number of DEA agents who were very open in saying when they found out a crime had been committed by the Pepes, they weren't, there was no one ever persecuted. They weren't exactly, or if they found out that a house was burning and it was owned by Pablo Escobar, oh, maybe the firemen decided they had to go back and get a new hose before they could put it out. So there was a certain tacit acceptance, because after all, everybody would benefit from their perspective if Pablo Escobar were killed. And Carlos Castano plays a big role in that.
Mm-hmm. Right.